Welcome back, Blue Jackets fans, to On the Bench with Columbus Wire TV. And right now, I would like to welcome in our Blue Jackets expert, Dave Seaman. Dave, the Columbus Blue Jackets return home Wednesday evening, coming off of a 5-game road game losing streak, only to return home with a loss to the St. Louis Blues. Close games, some of them close in that 5-game stretch. What do you take away from the Blue Jackets and that 5-game road trip?
Oh, so close. I mean, really, the last 6 games has been a microcosm of the Blue Jackets season, and really, when you think about the 10-year franchise history, oh, so close. Mm-hmm. You know, you go on a road trip a week and a half ago, and you lose a close game in Nashville. They score like 90 seconds left in the game. Then you go to Vancouver, the best team in the Western Conference, and you lose in a shootout, an 8-round shootout. Right. So you take the best team in the West, and you're on the brink, or you take them to the brink, and you're sitting there going, okay, not a big deal. You get a point out of 2 games. You're in good shape. And, you know, going on that 5-game road trip, I said beforehand, this was probably the most crucial road trip of the year, and they had to come back with at least 5 points. Well, they came back with 2, and, you know, okay, you get through St. Louis, you get through Vancouver, and you're like, okay, you know, we're doing okay. Then you go to Edmonton, the worst team in the league, and you lay an egg. Steve Mason gets yanked after 3 goals. For the second time this year, he gets yanked in a game in Edmonton. Obviously, him and Rexall Place, there's something going on there. But you lose to the worst team in the Western Conference. That was like a dagger in the heart as far as playoff opportunity or playoff chances. Then the next night, you go to Calgary and you play a spirited game. Again, you have a lead in that game. You're up 1-0. I think you're up 2-1 at one point. Jerome McGinley scores a goal, and Calgary beats you. That's 4 games. Then you go to St. Louis and you blow a 2-1 lead or a 3-1 lead, very eerily similar to what happened Wednesday night here in Nationwide Arena. You're up 3-0 and you lose 4-3 in an overtime. So you're seeing a lot of close games, right, but you're seeing a Blue Jackets team that can't finish it right now.
Well, we'll get back to finishing out games and closing out those close games, but let's talk about the trade, because I think that the Blue Jackets actually, in my opinion, made a big move, and you could look at this 2 ways. One way is they got rid of Rusty Klesla, and they acquired Scotty Upshaw and Samuel Lepisto. What are your thoughts on that? I like what Upshaw brings to the Blue Jackets system, but I want to hear what you think.
Well, let's first of all let's talk about the past. Rusty Klesla, the original Blue Jacket. Mm-hmm. But let's be honest. What has he done? I mean, yeah, he was great in the playoffs 2 years ago. He was great going down the stretch. He was great to start last season, and then he got injured. Mm-hmm. He hasn't been the same player since. And so, to see him go. Right. I know a lot. There is that emotional attachment. Mm-hmm. He was the first draft pick ever. Well, Doug McLean was the first general manager ever, and he's not around anymore either. So you kind of have to look at it from that standpoint. But I think that the other side of it is, and we'll talk more about it, you free up a lot of space and you free up a roster spot. When you think about the fact that Grant Clitsome came up this year when Mike Commodore was sent to Springfield, that created a spot for Grant Clitsome, who has come up and has played very well. Okay, there's been injuries. Klesla was injured, so it's not like he's been playing all that much anyway. And, we also got to mention Craig Rivet, who was picked up on the waiver wires from Buffalo. So have another former captain in the mix, him, Chris Clark, and obviously Ethan Morrow from Edmonton. You have all these former captains on this team, so you have veteran experience on this team. So to see Klesla go, it was a tough thing to do.
Like it.
Oh, I like it, absolutely. Okay. Because now what you have is you have 2 defensemen under contract after this year, Chris Russell and Fedor Tutin. So now you can rework your defense, something that Scott Housen has needed to do for several years. A year ago, everybody was locked under contract. You couldn't do anything. Anton Strawman was the only holdout, which Scott Housen played hardball, and he's looking to be a genius in this trade because, Strawman's been at the healthy scratch here lately.
Mm-hmm. Quickly, what do the Blue Jackets need to do in order to close out these close games? What clearly isn't getting the job done, and what needs to happen?
You would think pride would be the big part of it, but I just think that they lack that killer instinct. And after the game against St. Louis Wednesday night here at Nationwide, Scotty Upshaw, and this is why Scotty Upshaw is going to be a great addition to this team. He met with the media. He said what he had to say. Mm-hmm. He sat in his stall, head down, just like, oh my gosh. Right. I've seen R.J. Umberger do that before. They call R.J. the conscience of this team. Right. You bring a guy like Scotty Upshaw in, and he is somebody who's gonna, him and Umberger are gonna be able to feed off of each other. Obviously, they're former teammates in Philadelphia, but as far as what this team needs to do, I mean, they just have to learn to finish games.
Well, Scotty Upshaw, and I also think definitely brings that sense of he's what we like to call a contagious player, where he's out there, he's feisty, guys want to play like him, which is great. So, looking down the road ahead, the next month or so, what can he do, and what do you expect from the Blue Jackets in general?
Well, I think, let's look at it from this standpoint. The Blue Jackets, depending on what happens with the rest of the games Wednesday night, they're either going to be 6 or 7 points out of the last playoff spot. It's still manageable for the Blue Jackets to come back and make the playoffs. Now, for them to do that, they're going to have to go like 14-3 the last 17 games of the year, 16, 17 games of the year. Is it possible? Sure. I mean, you can't stop believing in this team. It's hard not to stop believing. I mean, and, the fans obviously haven't stopped believing. You're getting good crowds. And, I mean, when you look at some of the teams coming up on the schedule for the Blue Jackets, Boston coming up, Chicago, Detroit, those in the next 2 weeks. New Jersey's coming in. You've got some quality opponents coming into Nationwide Arena. So you're going to see bigger crowds. And, usually when there's bigger crowds, the Jackets seem to play up a little bit.
All right. Dave Seaman, great insight as always. And this is a wrap on the Bench with Columbus Wire TV. Until next time, I am Ashley Ignelzi.